She's the real entrepreneur. My mother-in-law's voice dripped with condescension through the phone. Anna needs this money for her revolutionary tech startup. You're just letting it sit there collecting dust. I gripped my office chair, watching the city skyline through my 20th floor window while processing the news that she'd somehow diverted my $550,000 investment returns. My name is Sophia Chen, and at 34, I'd spent the last decade building a successful investment portfolio while my sister-in-law, Anna, burned through her trust fund launching one failed venture after another. The irony of my mother-in-law, Patricia, calling my careful financial planning collecting dust wasn't lost on me. That money was earmarked for my company's expansion, I said calmly, though my knuckles were white from gripping the armrest. How exactly did you access those funds, Patricia? She laughed, the sound grating against my ears. Oh, David gave me the authorization months ago. He said you wouldn't mind helping family. David, my husband, who had power of attorney while I was recovering from surgery last year. The same David who promised he'd never let his mother interfere with our finances again. And Anna's startup? I kept my voice steady, professional. What exactly is she investing my money in this time? It's an AI-driven social media platform, Patricia gushed. Much more exciting than your boring investment firm. Anna says it'll be bigger than Facebook. She's already hired a team of developers in Silicon Valley. I thought about Anna's previous ventures, a luxury pet fashion line that lasted 3 months, and a cryptocurrency that turned out to be a glorified Ponzi scheme. Each failure cushioned by family money and endless excuses. I see, I replied, opening my laptop and starting to type. And the investors meeting this afternoon? Patricia's voice faltered slightly. How did you know about that? I make it my business to know about investments in the tech sector, Patricia, especially ones made with my money. The silence on the other end was telling. They hadn't expected me to find out so quickly, hadn't anticipated that I'd have connections in the venture capital world. After all, I was just the boring sister-in-law who played it safe with traditional investments. Well, Patricia recovered, her voice sharp. Anna's presenting her business plan to the investment board at 3 p.m. Not that you understand the complexity of what she's building. This is real innovation, not just moving money around like you do. I checked my watch, 1:30 p.m. Perfect timing. Thank you for letting me know, Patricia. I'd appreciate your transparency. I ended the call before she could respond and immediately dialed another number. Marcus, it's Sophia. Remember that favor you owe me? I need you at the Silicon Valley Investment Board meeting at 3 p.m. today. Yes, the one with Anna Morris presenting. Just listen and take notes. I'll handle the rest. Next, I called my lawyer, Emma Thompson. Emma, it's time to activate Protocol B. Yes, all the documentation we prepared last year. And contact David's office. I need every authorization form he signed in the last 6 months. As I made my calls, I thought about David, probably sitting in his corner office, unaware that his mother had just revealed his betrayal. We'd been married for 8 years, and I'd always known his loyalty to his family, especially his younger sister Anna, ran deep. But this was different. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Anna says you're not invited to the investors' meeting. Don't try to interfere with her success just because you're jealous. I smiled, thinking about the real reason I'd stayed quiet on the call. It wasn't fear or shock that kept me calm. It was knowledge. Knowledge that Patricia and Anna, in their rush to grab what they thought was easy money, had walked right into a trap I'd set months ago. The investment returns they diverted? That account was a honeypot, a carefully monitored fund I'd set up after the last time they tried to borrow from my accounts. Every transaction was logged, every access attempt documented, and every dollar traceable. And now they were about to present a business plan to one of the most scrutinizing investment boards in Silicon Valley, using money they'd obtained fraudulently. I opened my safe and pulled out a thick file labeled Morris Ventures Documentation. Inside was every failed business plan Anna had ever pitched, every bankruptcy filing, every investor complaint. Next to it sat a smaller file with copies of every document David had signed in the past year, including the power of attorney forms, and their carefully worded limitations. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Marcus confirming his attendance at the meeting. I leaned back in my chair, allowing myself a moment of satisfaction. Patricia and Anna thought they were finally putting me in my place, showing the boring sister-in-law what real business looked like. They had no idea they were about to learn a very expensive lesson about what real business actually entails. The investors' meeting wasn't just about Anna's latest doomed venture. It was about to become a masterclass in consequences. I picked up my phone one last time, sending a brief text to David. "We need to talk about the authorization you gave your mother. Dinner at home, 7 p.m. Then I turned back to my laptop, ready to set the next phase of my plan in motion. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about teaching people the true cost of underestimating you. The investors' meeting was in full swing when Marcus's texts started rolling in. I sat in my office, reading each update with growing satisfaction. Anna just claimed her platform has 100,000 beta users. Board asking for verification. Then, moments later, no documentation provided. She's sweating. I smiled, remembering Anna's previous presentations. She'd always had a flair for dramatic promises but struggled with the mundane reality of proof and documentation. Today would be no different. Patricia trying to intervene, Board asked her to leave. Anna fumbling through financial projections. Marcus's updates painted a clear picture of the unfolding disaster. Just then, my office door opened. David stood there, looking confused and slightly angry. "Sophia, why is my mother calling me in a panic about some investment meeting?" I held up a finger, signaling him to wait as another text came through. Board discovered discrepancy in funding source. Asked about authorization for $550,000 transfer. Anna claims it's family investment. "Sit down, David," I said calmly, turning my screen to show him the transaction records. "Let's talk about the authorization you gave your mother while I was recovering from surgery." His face paled slightly. She said she needed it for some family emergency fund. That it was just a formality. A formality that she used to steal over $500,000 from my investment account to fund your sister's latest scheme. I replied, my voice level but firm. The same sister who's currently trying to convince the Silicon Valley Investment Board that she has a legitimate business plan. David ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed years ago. "Anna's presenting to the investment board today with our money." "Not our money, David, my money. Money I earned, money I invested, money your mother had no right to touch. With or without your authorization." Another text from Marcus. Board requesting proof of fund ownership and transfer authorization. Anna claiming family trust arrangement. They're calling for documentation. I turned back to David, who was now pacing the office. "Your mother and sister thought they could use my investment returns to fund another one of Anna's fantasy startups. They didn't bother checking where the money came from or what safeguards I had in place." "Safeguards?" David stopped pacing, looking at me with growing unease. "That account they accessed? It's monitored by the SEC as part of a financial fraud investigation unit. Every transaction is logged and verified. Your mother's transfer triggered multiple alerts the moment she moved the money." The color drained from David's face. "The SEC? Sophia, you can't be serious. This is family we're talking about." "Family?" I stood up, finally letting some of my anger show. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't abuse power of attorney. Family doesn't mock someone's hard work while trying to rob them blind. My phone rang. Marcus calling this time, not texting. I put him on speaker. "Sophia, you're going to want to hear this," he said. "The board just discovered Anna's previous failed ventures. They're asking about the cryptocurrency scheme from last year. She's completely falling apart." David sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "The crypto thing, that was just a misunderstanding. She didn't mean to defraud investors." I cut him off. "To run a Ponzi scheme, to drag our family's reputation through the mud. Which part was the misunderstanding?" David, another text flashed on my screen. Patricia trying to force her way back into meeting. Security called. I turned back to my husband, studying his defeated posture. "The board members aren't just investors, David. They're my colleagues, people I've worked with for years, people who know exactly who I am and what your sister tried to do with my money." "What are you going to do?" he asked quietly. "I'm not going to do anything," I replied. "The SEC will investigate the unauthorized transfer. The investment board will handle Anna's fraudulent presentation. And my lawyers will deal with the power of attorney abuse." David looked up, his eyes pleading. "They're still my family, Sophia. There must be something we can do." "They stopped being my family the moment they decided to steal from me," I said firmly. And you stopped being my partner the moment you gave your mother authorization behind my back. My phone buzzed again, an email this time. The investment board's preliminary findings, copied to all relevant parties. I forwarded it to David without a word. He read it, his face growing paler with each paragraph. The board hadn't just rejected Anna's proposal. They flagged it for criminal investigation, citing multiple instances of fraud and misrepresentation. "This will ruin them," he whispered. "No, David. They ruined themselves. Your mother by thinking she could steal from me, Anna by thinking she could lie her way through another scheme, and you by betraying my trust." I stood up, gathering my files. "I have a meeting with my lawyers in 20 minutes. I suggest you use this time to think very carefully about whose side you're really on." As I walked to the door, David called out, "They're my family. I turned back one last time, and I was your wife. Was that not enough?" Leaving it in my office, I headed to the conference room where Emma Thompson waited with her team. It was time to show Patricia and Anna exactly what happened when they messed with the wrong sister-in-law. Sometimes the quietest person in the room isn't the weakest. They're the one watching, learning, and preparing for the moment when justice finally comes calling. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours of the investment board meeting, Anna's revolutionary startup was exposed as nothing more than an elaborate shell designed to attract investors without any real product behind it. The SEC investigation revealed a pattern of fraudulent behavior that stretched back further than even I had known. Patricia called incessantly, her messages switching between threats and desperate pleas. "You're destroying this family," she screamed in one voicemail. "We can work something out," she begged in another. I let each call go to voicemail, documenting every threat and admission for my lawyers. David moved out 3 days after our confrontation in my office. "I need time to think," he said, packing a small bag. "This is all happening so fast." "Actually," I replied, watching him from the doorway, "this has been happening for years. You just never wanted to see it." The SEC investigation expanded beyond just the unauthorized transfer of my funds. They uncovered evidence that Anna had been running various schemes under different company names, with Patricia helping to cover her tracks. My investment returns were just the latest in a series of fraudulent fund diversions. Emma called with updates regularly. "The board members are pressing charges," she informed me one morning. "They're treating this as a coordinated attempt at investment fraud. Patricia's unauthorized access is being added to the criminal complaints." I sat in my home office, reviewing the damage reports. Anna's previous investors had come forward, encouraged by the investigation, to speak about their losses. The cryptocurrency scheme alone had cost people millions, money that had supposedly gone into development but had actually funded Anna's luxurious lifestyle. "Your sister-in-law's facing serious charges," Marcus told me over lunch. "The board members are furious. Some of them had considered investing personal funds in her platform." If you hadn't set up those monitoring systems, I thought about the red flags I'd noticed over the years. Anna's sudden expensive purchases after each investment round, Patricia's insistence on family loyalty whenever questions arose, David's blind defense of their actions. I'd spent years watching, documenting, preparing for the moment they finally overreached. The final blow came when the FBI got involved, expanding the investigation to include Patricia's role in other financial frauds. Apparently, my mother-in-law had been helping more people than just Anna access funds they shouldn't have. David came by one last time, looking older than his years. "They're saying Anna might go to prison," he said, standing awkwardly in our once-shared living room. "Mom too, maybe. Isn't there anything you can do?" I looked at my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, and felt a mixture of pity and disappointment. They had chances, David. Countless chances to do the right thing. Instead, they chose to steal, lie, and mock the very person they were stealing from. But no, I cut him off. "You chose them over me every time. You gave your mother access to my accounts without my knowledge. You defended Anna's schemes instead of protecting our future. Those weren't mistakes, they were choices." He left quietly, finally understanding that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. 6 months later, I sat in my expanded office, now running one of the city's most respected investment firms. The scandal had an unexpected benefit. My reputation for fiscal responsibility and ethical investing attracted clients who valued security and transparency above quick returns. Anna accepted a plea deal, facing 5 years in prison and massive fines. Patricia was awaiting trial, her social standing in ruins as more victims of her financial manipulations came forward. David filed for divorce, unable to face the reality of his family's actions or his role in enabling them. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Final restitution order came through. They'll be paying you back for decades. I smiled, thinking about Patricia's last attempt to contact me. She'd sent a letter, full of accusations about family loyalty and forgiveness. I'd filed it with the others, evidence of a mindset that valued manipulation over honesty, greed over genuine success. Looking out over the city, I thought about the quiet strength it takes to wait for justice rather than seek revenge. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had seen my patience as weakness, my documentation as paranoia, my success as luck. They never understood that real entrepreneurship isn't about quick schemes and stolen funds. It's about building something legitimate, something lasting. In trying to prove they were better than me, they'd only proved how much they had to learn. I closed the restitution file and turned back to my work. Sometimes the best response to theft isn't anger or immediate retaliation. It's the quiet, methodical documentation that ensures justice will eventually prevail. In the end, they hadn't just lost my money. They'd lost everything trying to steal it. And I hadn't just protected my investments. I protected every future investor they might have targeted. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions.